Marco,
Sean, are you there? I can't see you.
I can't see you either.
Uh, I don't trust that
You're
you're
you're the
there.
invisible host.
Well, the truth is that we are seeing each other, and we're
Yeah,
actually seeing our guest. And
I know.
this is a brand story. If you didn't know that, Sean, I'm gonna bring you up to
You're gonna
speed.
you're gonna break that news for me. All
I'll,
right,
I'll just broke the news for you.
all
And
right.
are you secure or are you F secure? That's the
I
question.
think I think that's the question, and I think when people hear the name of that brand, uh, it's one that's been around for quite some time. Uh, Back in the day, I remember back in the day when I worked for another company and we were competitors, but all collaborating to make things better collectively for the industry. It's good times back then, and I think Dimitri and I share some of the timing overlap wise in terms of entry into this space. And Dimitri, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yep, and things have changed. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about that. I think if we could, let's start with kind of your background. I know you have a few days at F Secure. Maybe you can get into some of the roles you've had there and some of the changes you've seen over time. But I'm interested. Prior to F Secure, what brought you to the company?
Sure. I started very early on, actually, when in my teens already, working very closely with computers in general. This is end of '90s, and a lot of the whole internet boom started picking up, and I got very engaged in a lot of the website creation stuff, server stuff, networking. Setting up substantial networks at that time already. Taking into account I was 17 or something. I remember I wired one of the embassies in Finland just practically myself, and so those kind of small gigs, and that's how I kind of got into it, and then we did a couple of smaller startups within the family related to web portals and so forth in the beginning. And then I was in college at the same time, so got into more cybersecurity stuff and more server maintenance and so forth, and eventually ended up with IBM. I was there for a couple of years, and from there, I actually moved directly to F-Secure, and that's where I've been since 17 years now, and been doing. I started from very entry level sales role basically, and climbed the ladder through business development, product management. I started in Finland, in Helsinki, and because F-Secure is a Finnish company, and about 10 years ago, me and my wife, we decided, okay, let's move to US. There's a lot of opportunity here, and came here with the company, and still doing a lot of things for the company here, and working very closely with a lot of the telecom operators in the United States at the moment.
Well, funny story. Me and my wife, we were in Helsinki in January, and we decided that maybe one day we want to move to Helsinki. So
You
we're
should
gonna go the other way around.
you should go there in June.
I was there in January. It was cold. It was really cold. But that's a story for another podcast. So it looks like you've been in the industry for quite a while. Very typical story of a kid that gets into the dirty and the cable of computer. Back in the days, we could do that. Nowadays, we just use our phone, we just use our computer, we go online, API, and I think with this, we can pivot into what maybe F Secure is focusing on right now. So as a user, we expect to be secure when we go online. Is there a story there?
Oh, definitely. So F-Secure has been in this space for. I mean, we were one of the first players in the space. We started in '88, so it's over 35, 37 years now, and obviously we started with everybody else with malware protection, phishing protection, the basic stuff at that point, and we were trying different things. With encryption, with VPNs. Eventually, once I would say 2005 or so, we understood that hey, there's this very small niche, which is operator space, telecom operators specifically, and since they are providing the broadband experience, why don't we tag along to that and kind of provide security through that channel? And that became our niche, which we practically dominate today. We have 55% market share globally in consumer security through operator space. And about like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was a major shift within the company. So we actually demerged the company and made two companies. Like one is called F-Secure that I'm still with, and that is focusing on consumer cybersecurity. And the other one is called WithSecure, and they continued the enterprise business and the SMB business and so forth. And that actually kind of put us on a next kind of a growth path, because we could solely focus on securing consumers, as as you said. Consumers are expecting to be protected, and what we are trying to do is trying to make it as simple as possible for them. So our kind of a number one goal is to create kind of a number one cybersecurity experience in the world. And what we're using as a tool for that is all the different scam protection mechanisms today, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But scam protection is kind of the next big thing for us, and we've been working on that for some time now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back in the day, it was all about the networks. We started connecting things, and we needed to secure them as they connected to each other. That's how viruses spread, obviously, in the early days, still today. But you're working in an area now where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, consumer business, you're looking at the endpoints and giving those systems an environment that they can operate securely in. Obviously, talking about scam and phishing and things like that. But talk a little bit about this embedded world. Network's still part of it, but it's really securing the device, kind of putting the security in there, right?
Correct. Yes. So this is actually a very new initiative for us. We started this only a couple of years ago, where we moved from basically building our own cybersecurity solution, which we still do. That is still a major part of our business. But we noticed that there's a big trend in the market where a lot of our partners, whether that's telecoms, insurance companies, financial sector, and so forth, they really wanted to kind of bring security a little bit closer to their own applications, right? They wanted to start embedding things into their own apps. And that's where we decided that, okay, let's build out the biggest SDK portfolio on the market that anybody can pick and choose, basically, depending on a little bit on what they want to achieve with the cybersecurity functionalities. They can start adding those directly into their own applications. And there are a lot of like big positives in that, because one of the key challenges with cybersecurity, especially on the endpoint, has always been the activation and getting the customer engaged so that they actually install something and take it into use and so forth. But when you are embedding technologies, right, you're kind of putting cybersecurity in the environment where the customer already is, right? Whether that's your operator application or it's your insurance application, we're putting things in there and customers start using it automatically. So the level of protection becomes automatically tremendously bigger because we're just reaching way more customers.
Talking about the customers, I always like to look at things from a societal perspective, and I always read articles about the consumer doesn't really trust as much as they maybe should. So there is almost like, let's say, a crisis of trust in the consumer. And yet, they have not really much of a problem in downloading stuff. And, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't trust it, but hey, convenience, let me just get it. So how do we balance that? It's always the million-dollar question, convenience versus security. Where are we at?
Indeed, we actually have some interesting research on this. Like consumers are actually very, how would I put it, confident that they know what they're doing, right? We just got the latest research numbers, and like 70% of people say that they will spot the scams very easily. At the same time, with the exact same survey, 43% of that same customer group said that they have been scammed. So that kind of puts it a little bit,
which is way over 100%.
Yeah.
Which means they spotted it and they let it happen anyway. Yeah, yeah, I'm all right being scammed.
So yeah, I think the one of the key principles that we're trying to apply now is that we're trying to really understand like what the consumers are willing to do, and then as you said, it's a very delicate balance between convenience and the protection level that we can provide. And in reality, like based on all our research, consumers don't really care or want to understand what the problem with cybersecurity is. They don't care if they want to, use or they need to use a VPN or they need to use identity protection or they need like endpoint protection installed. They just want the problems to go away and somebody kind of to figure that out for them, basically. So that's why we also started to kind of pull all these solutions more together in a holistic way that they don't really need to know what's going on, that it's all kind of all in one and we take care of it and we'll just tell you what happened afterwards.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, they sit, they being the end user, the consumer, sit at one point in what I'll call the scam workflow, if you will. Um, Many players involved. Um, so how do you look at that chain? I'll call it the chain of activity for
Yep.
the scam to take place, so that you know how and where protection should be put in place, how and where communication should be made, how and where detection and response should be placed, so that, to your point, the consumer doesn't have to worry about that. They can be anywhere in that chain and know that they're protected.
Exactly, and that's one of the fundamentals that we're trying to apply kind of across anything new that we're building and then try to protect the customers with. We call it like a scam kill chain that we've created as a fundamental like guideline almost for everything we do. That whatever features or functionalities, protection mechanisms we come up with, we're always trying to look at, okay, is the customer protected in the very first phase, like when the scammer is trying to contact them, are they protected in the next phase when they're trying to create like a trust relationship and try to maybe do some lateral moves and so forth in the latter stages of the attack. So that kind of provides us a lot of guidance, and ensures basically that whatever we produce is kind of covering the customer end to end. It might not be within the same functionality. We might need supporting features around that to be able to cover them across the board. But at least that way we can kind of make sure that we've done kind of our homework and we've done the best we can to protect them.
Well, that was something very valuable, I think, when we used to make our own computers and work with the cables and really understand this is how a computer works. Versus now we have the phones that you can't even open anymore, and you just gotta trust the device. And I think that's I'm not saying people should go back and build their own computers, but there is a lack of understanding of how the system even works, which for me there is a lack of education and understanding on how somehow help yourself to protect yourself. I don't know, I mean, where do you cross the line between there is an easy button that says you don't have to worry about anything versus, well, the human element, it's still there. The scammer can still get to you. How do you balance the two elements?
Well, I think if you look at the educational aspect of this, I think the biggest problem that we've seen is that the news and the information that customers are getting is very generic, right? You open newspaper, any other day, and you will see, hey, there's another breach. Somebody stole somebody's information, somebody got scammed, and so forth. And people are kind of becoming numb to that because it's so generic, right? What the way how we've tried to pivot around that is that we're trying to learn more about the customer so that whatever we tell them is more about them, so it becomes very personal to them. Like we tell them that, hey, this is the scam that resulted in $1 billion losses, and by the way, you are on the same path and most likely will be impacted by this if you don't do something now. So it becomes more, we don't use like scare tactics too much, because then people will just clam in and don't do anything. But we're trying to kind of be educational from the point of view that it's personal to them, and relatable to them, and so forth. And it also has to be timely. Like good example is tax scams, right? They're all over the place from like March to April. Everybody's filing for taxes, returns, maybe even May, and so forth. Like that's the best time to talk about how do you protect yourselves against those things, because it's on top of your mind.
And talk to me a bit about the idea of an ecosystem and being part of the environment that the consumers live in. I mean, they're on their phones connecting to telco networks. They're on their phones and laptops and iPads and other tablet devices, on the Wi-Fi at home. And again, they have an expectation that somebody's doing something for them, right? Maybe the phone is secure, maybe the endpoint device is secure, but there's still the environment inside. There's still applications. There's still text that can find their way in. You click a text. Text comes on computers now, right? Open link from a text on your computer might get infected. So talk to me about the work you're doing with telcos and that ecosystem, and bringing the security into the home environment through, I know you've done a lot of work with router technology and things like that. So kind of paint that picture for us.
Yeah, definitely. So the way how we try to look at things is we try to basically identify the channels that the people operate with. Like we're trying to protect people's digital life, right? When it's not so much anymore about protecting your device, your phone, your laptop, and so forth. Like if you think about your laptop, like how much information is really there? It's all in the cloud somewhere, right? It's just an access point to that information, right? All your data is somewhere in the social network, in I don't know, OneDrive or similar storage, and then it's all dispersed all around. And your device, is not necessarily that big of a threat vector anymore. So we're trying to kind of put ourselves into those different channels where the customers are touching their own data or accessing some like sensitive information like banking experience, shopping experience, and so forth. So we're trying to get as close to that interaction with those online services, and then with the storage locations and so forth as we can. That's why, especially when we look at the scam protection, like we're protecting customers from like SMS phishing, right? That's one of the channels. It's not technically on the device; it comes through the network. WhatsApp messages, email messages. We will look at, you mentioned the router security. We embed our technology within the home router so we can protect all your IoT devices in the household. So that's another channel that can leak information into outside world. So, and the way how we can actually create more kind of a holistic and protective like ring around you is by combining all that data together, because then we actually understand your threat profile better. If you just filter somebody's emails for like phishing links, yes, that they might have like a lot of scam messages coming into the inbox, but you don't know anything about what's happening around them. So kind of merging those channels and touch points within your digital lives together and being present in all of them creates this tremendous amount of visibility. And you mentioned the telecom players, and I think it's important to highlight here that within the telecom space, there's a lot of data that they see, right? They have access to practically, all the websites you're visiting, all the services you're using. They see all your SMS messages and so forth, and they're doing a lot of stuff to protect you. They're filtering scam messages. They have network-based filtering for malicious links and other like traffic that might be malicious to you, but they don't communicate that back to the users, so they never know that something has been actually done for them. So I think that's kind of we're trying to merge that gap basically between being present on the device, protecting everything you have, but also bring the data back from the operators into that kind of a user interface where they can see that, okay, well, the operator has actually done something for us. So I think it's about kind of a linking as much data together as possible. Because if you look at this also from the other side, from the bad guys' perspective, they have so much data nowadays. You go on dark web, you can buy all the data you need. It's probably more than any of the operators will have. So how can you combat the bad guys if you're already in a very bad starting point because you have less data than they have?
Well, I really like the fact that you actually tell people what has been going on. because they're learning. It's just not by default. Their brain actually say, okay, yeah, I did that, and that was wrong. I went on that website. I did reply to that. And if you don't know you've done anything wrong, you're just going to keep doing it, right? So I think from the educational perspective, that's just brilliant. Um, okay, I have two letters for you. It's one is an A and one is an I, and go for it. How is this impacting all that you're doing?
Well, it does impact quite a lot. Kind of goes back to the previous point. Bad guys have all the tools they need with AI now that they can generate the best scam messages out there and so forth. So we have to do the same. And in all honesty, within cybersecurity space, we've been using AI and machine learning for like a decade and a half at least. We process so much data that it's not really possible to do it without that. But I think what's going on with AI, and especially how do we protect people better, is that there's more preciseness and we can manage way more data at once. So we can actually get to that point where we can start not only blocking things for you and telling you that you did something wrong, or you shouldn't go to these locations, or these are bad messages that you're receiving. Instead, we're moving very fast into the world where we will be able to predict things for you. So based on patterns that we've seen before from others who we are protecting, right? So we will be probably within like next 18 to 24 months, we will be able to tell you like 3 days in advance that, hey, you will be quite likely scammed, and this is how it will happen. So that will become like a very powerful personal message to you. That will really like raise the alarms with people. We will give them the protection score and saying that, hey, you're really in the risky areas right now. Stay alert.
That's really cool. Does it come with a lottery ticket?
Scratchers.
I wish.
That would be fun. I want to. I don't want to get technical here too much, but I think what you're describing is only possible from the years and decades of research that you've done and continue to do, and your partnership with the other organizations, telcos, and specifically where their knowledge, your knowledge, come together using technology can give you this ability to predict the future, for lack of a better way of putting it, and doing it in a way that's fast and scalable, and in a way that the consumer knows what's happening. So it's not technically driven, but socially responsible in terms of the presentation to the consumer. Can you touch on how that works? Because to do it at speed, to do it at scale, to do it in a meaningful way that consumers can understand is a big challenge that the industry has been fighting for quite a while.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the whole privacy angle that you mentioned, that's the tricky part. Like it's very kind of hard for customers or consumers in general to understand, like, okay, why do people need to collect information about them? I think like cybersecurity and telecom players are in a little bit of a better spot because we do have the trust factor, in the sense that the operators are providing the connectivity. 75% of the people expect the operator to keep them safe, so they are actually willing to give some of their information to them so that they can better protect them. But it is a very delicate balance between like just harvesting a lot of data and on the other hand, what are you providing kind of as a tool back to the customers, right? So I think the key here is that they need to see like visible results immediately, almost like if you ask for some information, then give them something back, show how did you use this data and what it like do for you, for the consumer, in immediate way. One kind of cool thing that we created just a couple of months ago is it was in our router space, right? And it's a router security solution that just scans for all the IoT devices. If something goes wrong or there's malicious stuff happening on the network, it will highlight that, hey, there's something wrong with this device, check it out, and so forth. But it was very hard for the consumer to understand, like, okay, why is this not doing anything? Because they installed it, it's all up and running, it's all good, and nothing happens for weeks. So they don't get any feedback back. So what we created is that immediately when you install it, we scan all your devices and tell you immediately that, hey, that printer that you installed 3 years ago, it is actually full of holes and you should update it immediately. Your network security level is not that good. So you need to provide, like, you take some data from them, you provide immediate feedback back to them that, okay, this is what's going on with your data that we just got. And that way you gain even more trust from them, and then you can harvest more data.
Yep, and that's good. And that goes to the detail and the private environment, what is around you. But then there is the global environment, and I know
Mhm.
that you guys are very big into threat detection and talking between different industries and different partners, because it's you really don't know where it comes from. I mean, it's nice to know if my printer is acting weird on me, but where that threat comes from, does it come from China, from Russia, from who knows where? So the importance of a global threat intelligence and collaboration between industries. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's and I mean, this is something that has been done in cybersecurity already for a long time. Like, we've been sharing information with our competitors, with the industry in general, and so forth for years, basically. And I think the key there is that there's kind of different types of information available. If you think about different industries, like telecom will know, which sites are you going to, what is your like threat profile, what um, kind of information and traffic is coming out of your network. But on the other hand, then, for example, financial institutions will know all your transactional data. What is happening with your bank accounts, credit cards, credit scores, and so forth. All of that information. Your healthcare provider will know, your health status and your medical information. And even though I'm not suggesting that, financial institutions and healthcare providers should be sharing data like directly about their customers, but when we talk about the threat data, what could be risky for the customers, there has been actually quite a lot of initiatives globally where, for example, the banking industry and telecom industries have been working together. And it's actually even enforced by law in some countries. I think it's Singapore that just introduced some new regulation in that area, where if there is a scam that needs to be investigated or that is suspected, for example, telecom and financial institution are forced to work together to investigate it. So that kind of information sharing is definitely creating like a better protection for the consumers in the long run. And I'm definitely hoping that that's going to continue, and regulators will start enforcing that there need to be collaboration between, like, financial, telecom, healthcare, and so forth. All those companies that actually have a lot of consumer data.
Well, it sounds to me that's the way to predict the future even better. I mean, obviously, the more information the more collaboration, the more you can find some patterns that AI can help us
Yeah,
to predict the future.
as long as it's done in a responsible way, and
Yes, of course.
said that the data is not leaking somewhere
Right.
else.
Right. Well, that's the risk. That's
Well,
the
for
risk.
me, the proof is in the pudding, and I don't know if you have any stats you can share in terms of the number of detections you have, things you block, or you've prevented banking scams or other types of scams, and and then maybe if you have anything to share there, maybe as you then think about can we keep up with and how do we keep up with the scale of things that are to come given AI, and how are you prepared at F Secure to kind of deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have any exact numbers, but I mean, since we are working with the largest telecom operators there, we're protecting like tens of millions of customers globally, right? So, and at the same time, if we look at, how the protection will kind of evolve going forward, um, I think it will be, as I said, it will be more about the kind of predictive way of telling people in advance and trying to kind of steer them away. But I think the key really is trying to make it like as simple as possible for the end user. And what I mean by simple is that it should be almost like invisible for them. That's why this kind of an embedded approach works very well, because it's there. We get it installed without you necessarily even kind of doing anything, and then we're protecting the customer from everything they do. So that simplicity factor, and I think that will get people to kind of use it more because they don't need to worry about it too much. It just does things on the background, and then you get the information back. And then if you put the AI angle into that, that will become almost like at least in the immediate future, that's a translator that will tell you what actually happened in the human language that you can understand. But then in the future, that will also help with a lot of the threat prevention.
Well, maybe we can talk. I love to talk about the future if you haven't figured that out yet. So, are we any place close to really feel more secure? So that the feeling of being unsecure that we were talking at the beginning from the users, are we gonna get rid of that because we're just numb and we don't care anymore? So like the toothpaste is out of the tube. There's nothing I can do about it. Whatever. Or are we gonna really get? I'm not gonna say ahead of the game. I mean, I'm in cybersecurity. I know that there is always gonna be the threat. You know, it's a good versus evil battle that's never gonna end. But how do you feel about that? And I don't know, 5 years from now, which is eternity in in cybersecurity. How do you feel about that?
I like to think about that in kind of waves, right? Certain things start and then we get better in them and we can protect people better, and then they go away because the protection is so good that it doesn't make sense for the bad guys anymore to do that, and they will find another thing. Like, as I was mentioning, malware in the 90s and 2000s and so forth, that was the big thing. Then there was identity, kind of a monitoring type of a solutions to protect from breaches, and to password management became a big thing in like 2010, 15 and so forth, because the password stuffing and all those things were extremely popular. So I think like now the big wave is all the scams. That's all what's in the news. The next big wave from the security point of view obviously is going to be AI. That's already very clear. That's already being used now. What's going to be next wave? We're thinking it's either quantum computing. It's probably still maybe like 5-10 years away that we will be able to do anything meaningful, like break all the old passwords with it. But I think that's going to be kind of the next frontier, 5-10 years down the line, after the AI hype is done and we have protected everybody from all the malicious AI agents that can be there.
Yeah, we're waiting for that, and
Exactly.
then
Exactly.
quantum, and then aliens. I'm thinking aliens is gonna come after quantum.
Cyber aliens. Well, and so I want to bring it back down to earth and back home and literally to the consumer, and maybe a message for them. You can pick one or all of these things that I kind of lay out for you here, Dimitri. I'm just wondering, are there things consumers are doing, continue to do, that maybe they should rethink how they do it? Do they need to do something differently with their home network, with their devices that perhaps you can help with and their ISPs can help with? Are they making assumptions about levels of protection that may or may not be there? I don't know. Any advice for them to kind of help them take a pause and say, I may want to think of this differently. I may want to take this action now because I'm just leaving myself exposed otherwise.
I always like to kind of advise that people look at after their like digital footprint, like what are they leaving really behind. Every time you interact with somebody, somebody, some site, some service and so forth, you're always leaving a trace. You leave your bank card or credit card behind, or you create new set of credentials and so forth. I think just that awareness that you have done something and you have created that digital footprint behind you, I think that's something it's good to keep in mind. I don't think anybody really thinks about that nowadays. Everybody's just doing stuff online as fast as they can, and now with AI even faster. So it's once you kind of understand the fact like how much data is out there about you, it's scary. Like for many people, once they really learn that.
And on that point, before you go to your next one, because I just heard the other day somebody said they opened up an app that they hadn't logged into for 5 years, looking at something, and they go, "Oh, it already has my credit card." Now,
Exactly.
granted, it may have been expired, but
Yeah.
they didn't realize that the credit card was in there,
Yeah.
and
And
that
probably
it's been
leave
unused
a
one
couple
time.
of times.
Exactly. Anything else you want to share?
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. This was excellent discussion, and hopefully, it's going to be beneficial for a lot of people.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the idea that we operate on a level of trust, and we're relying upon, and I'm glad to see the ISPs working with the likes of F-Secure to kind of pull us together. It's always been in the back of my mind, like ISPs have a lot of knowledge. They need the help of companies like F-Secure, and this partnership and the fact that it's embedded in the environment and the collaboration is there globally is a huge deal for me. And I think it does give us a sense of comfort as consumers, knowing that this is actually being done, and we can the level of trust is being earned at this time, right? We can actually operate efficiently and safely in our environment. So it's good to see that happening. And Dimitri, it's great to chat with you, and appreciate you giving us an update on F Secure and all the cool things you're doing there. And hope everybody gets their embedded security in place.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. And for everybody else, this is a brand story on ITSP Magazine. Stay tuned. There'll be many more. Subscribe, share, tell your friends and enemies, whatever, anybody. Thank you,
Exactly.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dimitri.
Thank you.